Jupiter's biggest moons, Europa, Ganymede, Io, and Callisto, 4 fascinating worlds, some of them even having oceans that could support life. Just recently, NASA announced that the JUNO spacecraft had detected FM radio signals from one of these giant moons. What did NASA find there? Signs of life. Is there life in our solar system other than Earth? That's what we're gonna talk about today. The sensors of the interplanetary explorer JUNO detected a significant signal on the surface of Ganymede that we use in our daily lives, and we know it as Wi-Fi. What does that mean? That NASA has found alien signals from Ganymede. First, we need to learn more about this alien world. Ganymede is one of the Galilean moons of Jupiter and the largest satellite in the solar system. It has a diameter of 5,268 kilometers, which is 8% larger than Mercury. It's also the only satellite in the solar system that has its own magnetosphere, so we can assume that the signal received was from electrons in the electromagnetic field. So we most probably didn't get this signal from alien life, because even the temperature on the moon is very unfavorable, with an average temperature of -186 degrees Fahrenheit. However, Ganymede, composed mostly of rock, has a giant ocean of ice beneath the surface. The satellite also has a thin oxygen atmosphere. Recent evidence suggests that the ocean is frozen unevenly. Layers of ice alternate with layers of water, which remains liquid due to the large amount of salts. NASA experts believe that this water can sink to the bottom and come into contact with warm rock formations, which in turn creates important conditions for the existence of life. There's another interesting moon of Jupiter to search for life, Europa. For a long time, it was assumed that Jupiter's satellite was covered with a multi-kilometer layer of ice, so that the moon is something like a snowball with a rocky core inside. But as it turned out, the reality is much more curious. The Galileo spacecraft found signs of geysers over the surface of Europa. The Hubble telescope helped to confirm that, and since they exist, it means that there is liquid water under the ice of Europa, and there's a lot of it. According to the currently available sources, the depth of Europa's oceans can reach 80 to 179 kilometers, which means that the Jupiter's moon contains approximately twice as much water as all the Earth's oceans. Europa has volcanic activity, which together with the presence of oceans of water gives a strong argument that life may exist under the surface of the satellite, similar to that of the hydrothermal vents at the bottom of our planet's oceans. Now let's move on to even more interesting moon, but of another gas giant. Enceladus is the 6th largest satellite of Saturn with a diameter of 504 kilometers. This moon is interesting for the search for life because under the ice crust, which is from 30 to 40 kilometers thick, there's a whole ocean 11 kilometers deep. Scientists from NASA have discovered the main organic ingredients necessary for the existence of life in the water ejected by the geysers of Enceladus. Researchers analyzed the chemical composition of seawater and ice jets that regularly burst out of the satellite's icy crust through cracks. The samples were taken with the Cassini mission, an interplanetary lander. The planetologists found dissolved substances containing nitrogen and oxygen atoms, which play a key role in the formation of amino acids. These compounds can enter deep-sea chemical reactions, providing building material for living organisms. According to scientists, processes similar to those on Earth may be taking place at the bottom of Enceladus. Seawater mixes with magma, resulting in hydrothermal vents with temperatures as high as 370 degrees Celsius. Under these conditions, organic compounds are converted into amino acids and mineral components, allowing living organisms to develop and reproduce without the aid of sunlight. Next is Saturn's giant moon Titan, which is only slightly smaller than Ganymede in size. It is 5,149 kilometers in diameter and weighs 95% of the total mass of Saturn's 82 planets. Of all the satellites in the solar system, only Titan has a dense atmosphere consisting mainly of nitrogen. Mountains and cryovolcanoes spewing ammonia and methane can be found on its icy surface. Like Earth, Titan has seas and lakes. Only instead of water, they contain methane and ethane. Astronomers often compare Saturn's largest satellite to the young Earth, and do not rule out that protozoan organisms may live in its underground water bodies. This inspires further studies of Titan and its theoretical inhabitants, which will not at all resemble those of Earth because of the specific composition of the satellite's surface and atmosphere. Previously, we said that Titan resembled the Earth in its ancient times, which begs the question, so it turns out that people can live safely on this moon? Yes, they can, but with some difficulties. And you can even say that in terms of colonization of space objects, the most suitable place for us is not even Mars, which Elon Musk so wants to populate, but exactly Titan. But why? Let's compare Mars and Titan. The atmosphere of Mars is roughly speaking a vacuum, since the atmospheric pressure on Mars is 0.6% of Earth's. In fact, it doesn't matter what to colonize, whether it is the Mars or the Moon. They are both just big boulders in space. And therefore, here are imposed all the restrictions and risks for building and living in space. You need special armored tight capsules for protection against micrometeorites, plus protection against radiation, which on Mars though less than in outer space, but still not the safest level for humans. We also need spacesuits to reach the surface. Everything is much better on Titan. There's an atmosphere consisting of 90% nitrogen and hydrocarbons. The atmospheric pressure is quite comfortable for humans. Dense atmosphere gives protection from meteorites and radiation. Plus, the problem of transportation is solved, since without roads and infrastructure, the only transport is flying vehicles. In the conditions of Titan, transportation will be much easier to carry out. In terms of resources, not much is known about Titan since it's poorly studied. However, with respect to resources, it's still worth to consider not a separate satellite, but the entire Saturn system. So Titan here is much richer than Mars. The other Saturn satellites have metals. But more importantly, Saturn itself is a source of helium-3, which is an excellent fuel for fusion reactors. It follows that the minimum necessary to colonize Titan is advanced thermonuclear power, since there is almost no solar energy there. On the other hand, we shouldn't rely on it on Mars, where a dust storm can last a month. And the most important thing, on Titan, people can survive without spacesuits. Scientists claim that humans can survive on Titan without spacesuits, moving around warmly clothed and wearing oxygen masks and living in leaky buildings. Dwellings on Titan could be arranged similarly to those in the polar regions of Earth, using airtight insulation and piles to keep ice and frozen hydrocarbons from melting on which they stand. Simple double doors will keep the oxygen inside. If the dwelling leaks, it must be repaired, but it poses no immediate threat. But do not assume that colonizing Mars, much less Titan, is an easy task. It will be a challenge for all mankind, which we hope people will successfully cope with. Well, if you want to know more about how people want to explore the Red Planet, then follow the link to our previous video. And do not forget to like and subscribe to the channel, because it makes us do even more interesting content.